Okay, here we are, Facebook Live. R. Christian Minson coming to you from Rythmia Life Advancement Center, Guanacaste, Costa Rica. Whoops, already messages are coming through. Get myself all set up, situated. How you doing, people? People out there. For those of you who watch the recording, this part can always jump a few minutes, at least 2 minutes ahead, because I'm usually just waiting for a number of people to show up. I wait between 2 and 5 minutes, depending on how many people show up. We've got 9 now. Tom, welcome. Hey there. Sean, hey. Let yourself be known as you come on. I'm here to welcome you in. Hope everybody, at least in the American side, the Norte Americano side, Estados Unidos, wished you all a happy 4th of July on Wednesday. A little Freedom Day. And of course, our topic today is on freedom, making freedom a reality, which is dovetailing nicely into this time of year. We'll get into that. Hopefully you didn't express your freedom too much to where you were paying for it the next day, or expressing it so much that you ended up finding a loss of freedom in the sense of incarceration or otherwise. So we're here to talk about freedom and freedom in its truest sense. Just watched a beautiful Rythmia testimonial. By who there, Tom? Who was doing that testimonial? It brings to mind, I just created a Rythmia testimonial about the breathwork program coming up here soon. Maybe that's what I can do for us all right now, is just to remind you that Rythmia has started 1 week out of the month, a breathwork week, a week where all of the ceremonies are dedicated to breathwork. I'm telling you this because I am the breathwork director here at Rythmia, and so I'm largely responsible. Of course, I'm probably the lead man during that week, giving you the classes, guiding you through the breathwork. It's really a fabulous program. Of course, all the core elements of what makes Rythmia are still there. We still do the classes that Jerry has conducted. We still have a guest speaker come in. Who is it? This one coming up is Aura Nadrick, I believe, and 29th. So this is the upcoming breathwork week. The next one is in August 19th through 26th. All right, yeah, if you're liking that, give me some thumbs up, give me some hearts. And just got my last Yogananda fellowship mailer after so many years. Right on, Alex. Good to hear that. I've been reading this book on Yogananda, new book given to me by the guest speaker who was here last week, and really a fabulous book. Really a, what do you call it? Unbiased view of Yogananda and his life and legacy. So, all right, let's see. Anybody else want to join on? I think it's time to get started here. We're finding that probably summertime is bringing the live numbers down a little bit. We still end up getting the same amount. Many thousands tend to tune in after the fact, but we'll get started here. So welcome officially. Once again, my name is R. Christian Minson here at Rythmia Life Advancement Center in Guanacaste, Costa Rica. I'm the director of the breathwork program here. I'm a certified transformational breath facilitator, senior trainer for the last 12 years, spreading this work all over the world, USA, Canada, Mexico, Europe, the Middle East. I've been to Kuwait to spread this fabulous work, Bulgaria, all sorts of randomly crazy places. And I was a monk for 10 years of my life. that plays into my whole breathwork prowess. Breathwork really, to me, was the transitional modality that really bridged the gap for me between my monastic life and then wanting to keep that, the elements that I practiced there in the monastic life, but I wasn't really authorized to share all the techniques and such that we practice there. They like to keep that for the people who stay there, understandably so. So when I discovered breathwork, it really, to me, kept that whole spiritual perspective on life, and yet really made it more accessible to the average person. You don't have to join a religious institution. You don't have to, commit your life to following one individual. You just need to be in tune with your breath and practice awareness and practice opening up your breath, and that really brings that deeper spiritual insights and that I could get through the meditation and other things. So I'm also an author, speaker. I co-authored this book back here, Align, Expand, and Succeed. And I always have Shit the Moon Said by Jerry, our CEO here, the owner and proprietor of Rythmia, and and character quintessential here. Definitely, Rythmia would not be here without him. So today, let's see, Sovereignty, watch Wild Wild Country on Netflix. I have watched that. It's pretty crazy. Here we are. Our topic today is making freedom a reality. And this, of course, dovetails nicely in the fact that the United States of America just had Independence Day, our day where we celebrate freedom and independence. And so I thought we'd get into this today and really talk about freedom, what it is and how to get it. Right? So first of all, always check into why. Why is this important? And, you mentioned that I was a monk, and that has really colored my perception. Everything to me is framed from that spiritual perspective from this point forward. Every aspect of life I really measure through its spiritual significance, from brushing my teeth in the morning to doing medicine ceremonies to meditating and serving people and all those different aspects of life. We talk about freedom. It's really our soul's natural state to be free. Our soul is that seed of or that little piece of the greater consciousness. We might call it God consciousness. We might call it the universe, whatever you call it. It is the essence of existence, and as such, it is completely free. That creative essence is free to create. And if you don't see it, like, just look out in the world, how many different permutations as things evolve. Just a flower evolving over the years, or creatures, animals and other creatures. And our consciousness evolves when it is free to do so. So it's the inner impulse of expression of your unique individuality. This is freedom as a reflection of that divine spirit, infinite divine spirit. The soul, we can say, is bound to the body by a chain of temptations, troubles, worries, and, ultimately mortal consciousness. This consciousness that we are these limited beings. And, our directive here is really to expand our consciousness, to expand our awareness, to understand who and what you truly are, which is a soul, a spirit having a physical experience to help you evolve and understand, which is fundamental to the philosophies that Rythmia is built on and the trajectory we take you on during the week. So, if that doesn't convince you, just freedom feels good, right? It feels good to be able to express yourself freely, to not feel like you're suppressed or tamped down, that that you have the ability to do, be, and feel what is coming up for you. And so these are really the reasons why we're talking about this subject. Debbie Garcia says, awesome. Hey, Christian, nice to see you here. Sheila, nice to see you. Gwen, keeps freezing there. Sorry to hear that. Back next weekend for Giovanni's week. Breath is freedom. Beautiful. Goose, nice. Tim joined. Nice to see you. Lauren, hey, Lauren. Good to have you back on. Lauren was here just recently. Gwen's here on August 28th or August 26th. Really, I guess that's the last week here. Yeah, before we close down for September. It's the rainy month, and we get a lot of repairs and things done. All right, so this is why. So, what is freedom really? Hey there, Tim. And Mike, hey dude. What is freedom? Like I said, all my perceptions are now framed from this spiritual perspective. So freedom really is much more of an inner game than an outer expression. If you think about it, outwardly, there's always something thwarting our freedom. And if you understand that we are souls, we are just energy, that ultimately, the most common prison that all of us have to deal with is the body, right? So in the ultimate sense, we are, our physical encasement is keeping us from being free on that level. So there's, on this physical plane, there's always something trying to mess with our freedom. And we are even messing with our freedom through the law of karma. And I'll get into that a little bit. One way to really look at this is, I've brought up before the story of Nelson Mandela. Now, Nelson Mandela, was a freedom fighter, or a proponent for freedom and ending apartheid and those kinds of things. But he was jailed. He was put in jail for 20 some odd years. And, on one level you could say, well, that was a loss of freedom, right? I mean, being jailed, not being able to move freely, to choose your food, to choose who you hang out with and all that kind of stuff, that could appear to be a loss of freedom. But he stated himself that he found his freedom within that jail experience, that he recognized that they could encase his body, they could constrain his body, but they couldn't take his soul, they couldn't take his spirit. And so freedom really can be attained regardless of your outer circumstances. So this really implies that freedom is more the power to act by our soul's guidance versus act in conjunction with the compulsions of our desires. To be able to do what we want. We typically think that that's freedom, or this is what Yogananda would call whim freedom. The freedom to eat as much chocolate cake as you want, or the freedom to get drunk off your butt. These kind of things might seem like freedoms, but they're really, as we'll see, they're usually actions based in compulsion, which is a chain that's actually tying our soul down. So that the power to act by our soul's guidance is what we mean by true freedom. Now, we talk about the compulsions and desires. A lot of people have some some pushback on that. They say, what's wrong with desires? And what's, I mean, desires we're meant to live in life. And I certainly don't have anything against desires. Certainly don't think, life is meant to be enjoyed. In fact, when we're living from our whole self, our soul merged self, our main motivations are to love, to be loved, to have fun, and enjoy community. So there we go. Fun is right in there. So enjoying ourselves is part of the game when we are really operating from our soul level. However, when we talk about desires, we really have to dive deep and see, are we in control of our desires? Meaning, do we choose to engage in that desire and and then accept the consequences of that because it's our choice, or are we compelled by that desire? They take on an energy of their own, and at first you think you're fulfilling it because you want to, but soon, just like an addiction, soon you have to do it in order to feel satisfied, or just feel at a baseline level. No longer it's about feeling good, it just gets to be about feeling baseline. And of course, that's a very unsustainable way of life. And addictions and the troubles with that are one of the strongest highlights of that illustration. So on the flip side, to be good out of habit is not necessarily freedom either. And by good, I just mean to be following along those things that more or less keep you out of trouble, right? That help your life to flow smoothly. If you're not consciously engaging in your life on either spectrum, whether it's to what you're choosing, which is desire driven, or choosing even if it's moralistically good, or if either of those are habits, then we're still compelled by them. And people could argue that at least the good habits aren't getting you into trouble, so there's some value there. But you're still not essentially experiencing freedom if you're allowing yourself to just be driven by a habit that you've created. So acting from deep inner wisdom and free choice is what we're really talking about, freedom. To be able to tune in to the voice of your intuition. And I've done many Facebook Lives that speak to this degree. One about intuition, how to listen to the voice of your intuition. One, soul versus ego. Learning to hear which voice is which. So you can look in our archives for that. But acting from this deep inner wisdom, hearing our soul, and then not only hearing it. How many times have you heard somebody say, you should exercise or something, or you even hear your own voice say, I should really exercise. But the essence of that is actually doing it, right? To actually exercise. So, one other aspect of freedom I want to bring up is it's the container of karma and freedom. So we are essentially free agents. We can act freely. Even if you're in jail, you still have the ability to act freely to a certain degree. But where we actually imprison ourselves in our life experience a lot of times through this law of karma, which means we're free to act, but as soon as we act, we put out the energy into the universe, which will rebound and come back. And we have to then deal with the consequences of those energies. So if we send out discordant energy into the universe, that discordant energy is going to come back. And, we were free to express that energy, but now when it comes back at us, on one level, we're not free to avoid that energy, right? That energy now is our environment. We are imprisoned, so to speak, by this energy. Now we can still end up acting freely by choosing in our mind, choosing our soul's, our soul's highest path. But I want you to get this idea that, as we act freely, and oftentimes on desires, whims, and all that, we start sending out energy in the universe, which ends up imprisoning us more or less, in the long run. So freedom really is a concept of learn to behave, so to speak, in the very beginning, so that we start to neutralize those waves, so that what comes back to us continues to allow us to act and be free. All right. So with that, let's tune in a second. And Danielle, hey, joined. Derek, blah blah blah. Okay, so some guys just gonna have to listen to the playback. Too broken on my end. Sorry about that. I think for once here the signal is actually pretty good. So now it's working. Going, let's see, freedom and inner game rather than outward perception. Yep, and all interpretations are subdued from the perspective of self. Sovereignty comes from within. Divinity given, spiritually bound. Yeah, good. So sounds like we're kind of speaking the same language, on the same track. Lauren, loved it. I'm freer for sure. And that's Lauren talking about her experience at Rythmia. So your talk on forgiveness last week was awesome. It was definitely meshes with freedom. Excellent. Thanks, Sean. And so that, if you want to look in our archives, we usually have archives. Of course, the Facebook Live, just look in videos on the Rythmia page where this is being broadcast. We also then end up transferring them to our YouTube page, the Rythmia Life Advancement Center YouTube page, so you can get all my talks. All Meg does the food. She's the chef here, so she does a food talk on Sundays. Jerry, or a sub, is always doing I Got My Miracle on Saturday, which is helping you to meet somebody who came through the program all week. Dr. Jeff does his psychological perspective on Monday evening. So there's a lot there. There's a lot there for you. Okay, so how do we get this freedom? We don't want to make any bones about it. This is deep work, and I stress the idea that it's work, that it takes effort. This is in alignment. Jerry, our CEO, has created this manifestation course, and he just did a Facebook post the other day. Said, I'm just going to stop using the word manifestation, instead use the word creation, because that word manifestation seems to be bastardized to a certain degree, to think that we can just like open up and things will manifest, right? That is just going to happen. Whereas creation, at least from his perspective, implies a little bit more create. To create, we usually have to put some effort into it, right? There's something we do in order to make, in order to create. So our freedom is something we make. It's not something we just can sit back and have. Now, in this case, it's not so much of a doing more than a mental or an inner game, like we said, but we still have to work at that game. So it takes effort, but the reward is great. In fact, the reward is what I would call the highest level of conscious being, to live fully free, to live free of your karma, so that you're no longer, those waves are no longer affecting you, to live according to the dictates of your soul and not being swayed off path by any impulses or compulsions. So the first part is awareness. All right. Awareness that will help us first align with the true reality that we're a soul, that we are, soul beings having a physical experience, rather than this idea that we're just physical beings and we have to put up with this physical reality. Really, the awareness is embodied in the Rythmia program too. One of our first tenets is, when we're going through the ceremonies, is one of the first affirmations is, show me who I've become. Show me who I've become really is that idea of awareness, to be aware of what foundation we've laid, what habits have we picked up along the way, good, bad, or ugly, that are now influencing the path that we're on. And do we want that? Is that in alignment with what we really want out of our lives? Or does that seem to be hampering our ability to get what it is that we want? Somebody's asking me, are you totally free? No. No, I am not totally free. I have to work at this just like all of us. So, I don't want to give any kind of impression that I am holier than thou and all that. I'd say the difference between me and somebody who isn't quite as free is that I have a lot of knowledge and practice and techniques that help us to realign with freedom. So when I get off track, I have ways to help me get back on track. But it's the human condition to tack like a sailboat. All right, we drift off, we come back on. We drift off, we come back on. If you don't have these techniques, you can drift off and off and off, and you might just go right off the page there, or finally start to come back. And life can be very dark and miserable if you're not quite on your soul's guided path. The more that you have processes, techniques, programs like Rythmia to help you, the more you're going to get off but get back on, get off, get back on. So your path is going to be a lot straighter. So hopefully that that expresses my sense of freedom a little bit. So you need awareness, first of all. The second thing is will, strong will. Our willpower is our saving grace. It is the thing that will get us through anything. And so you have to have a strong desire to be free. You may have the awareness of these things that are hampering you, and you want to get over them, but you're kind of like, I just be. If that's the case, you're going to continue to just let your environment and the energies of your circumstances dictate your life. So you have to have a strong will and a strong desire to want to be free first. And that's, you can cultivate that through affirmations, cultivate that through other practices, doing little things that you say you're going to do, like staying away from sweets, or keeping your exercise routine, or just keeping your meditation routine, any of that stuff. So strong will, resolve you're not going to be affected by troubles. This is one of the biggest things. Recognize that troubles are like a storm on the ocean, right? If you're on the surface of the ocean and a storm comes, man, the waves are big, crashing over you, it's raining, lightning, all this kind of stuff. I mean, you're really being tossed around, and maybe you won't even survive. You ever notice, just dive under the ocean, and that storm could be going on like crazy, but you are in this deep sea of calmness. It's calm, it's peaceful, it's relaxed. The storm is raging above. This is the physical reality. This is the perception of your troubles. So recognize that you aren't your troubles, that you can always dive deeper into your inner being, and there is this place of calmness. This happened to me, my path of awakening when I was younger, basically when I was in college. I had hit rock bottom. I was very unexpressive, person, very moody. My relationships didn't go well as a result of my ability my inability to communicate well. I was into drugs, mainly pot and alcohol, but exploring other things, and all this stuff was just spiraling me down. And I remember just feeling at rock bottom, basically when I got laid off from my job. That was the culmination of all this. And I went back to my room that night, and I just got down on my knees, or proverbially at least, and I spoke with God. I was like, you've got to help me here. You've got to show me that there's something more than this, that there's something better than this. And what was revealed to me was this deep sense of what I call like an aquifer of peace, this thin trickle, this little underground river that was going on, that I could feel was just peace and joy. And it was in me. I could feel that it was in me. I could intuitively feel that it was accessible. But at this stage of my development, it felt like there was like a mile of bedrock, between me, where I was, the surface there, all of the troubles and problems, and this deep aquifer of peace. So the question obviously was, how do I drill down? How do I get there? And I discovered techniques of meditation. I discovered breath work. I discovered plant medicines, and that helped me drill down and find that peace. Now, now the whole game is staying there, right? Staying in that peaceful zone when troubles have this energy that wants to suck you back up to the surface and get you all riled up. So recognize that, resolve with your will that you're not going to be affected by these troubles. There's also an idea it's okay to be tempted. It's more acting on that temptation. And again, I don't use temptation in the religious sense, but to say if there's something you don't want to be doing and you get this desire to do it. A lot of people get down on themselves just because they have that desire. Well, ultimately, if you have the desire but you don't act on it, that's a victory. Maybe we'll work on getting rid of the desire altogether. Sometimes it doesn't go. Our sex drive, for instance, is something that can get us into trouble sometimes. But that's a desire that we can, we get this impulse and we don't have to act on it. And sometimes not acting on it is the best thing for you to do, avoiding a lot of complications. But that desire is generally not going to go away. It's a built-in thing. So recognizing that to have these feelings, to have these ideas that you want to get off track is not so much the issue, but really controlling your actions, whether you follow through with that desire or not. All right. So this is really the crux of your freedom here. Those desires can be raging behind your brain, but you choose not to act, and you've won that battle for the day. So we need awareness, we need willpower, then action, really. And like we said, what I was just talking about, manifestation versus creation. We need to act. We need to put ourselves into action that will align us with the true reality of our nature, constantly fighting the battle from a perspective that we can never win. Like Einstein said, you can never solve a problem on the level of which it was created. Most of our problems are created on our physical and mental levels. We have to dive deep or transcend that level of consciousness in order to find solutions that are going to solve these problems on the mental and physical levels. So the analogy here, or let's say that until the seeds are roasted these things will continually come up. And so the analogy here is like weeds. Our desires are like weeds that grow up. And we can cut them down, you can cut down a weed, but it's, as long as there's a seed underneath, it'll continue to sprout back up. But if you went through and you scorched the earth, which is, you know, not a holistic practice by any means, but if you were to scorch the earth and roast those seeds, they're dead now. They cannot sprout anymore. And so we're really looking for actions that are helping us to roast those seeds, to come back to our pure soul nature and our pure soul's motivation. And this is akin to the next Rythmia intention, which is merge me with my soul. You know, get me back to my divine self. Help me to think, live, and feel in that state of divinity. So at Rythmia, the practices that really help this are, of course, the plant medicine and what I teach, the breath work. These are activities that bring us back into soul consciousness, that help us to get a glimpse of who we are as divine beings and help us really anchor ourselves in that perception. Of course, as a monk, meditation was the biggest practice in that realm. And serving others helps us to get out of our ego self, helps us often get out of our own, you know, dwelling on our own problems. We start helping somebody else, and that gives us a shift of consciousness. So serving others is another important way, an important action that helps bring us into alignment, recognizing ultimately that we're all one, that when we serve somebody else, we are serving ourselves. So probably one of the biggest things is to practice the expression of unconditional love. All right, so you know, love is the fabric of creation, essentially. You could equate love is God. Love is the energy of the universe. And the universe expresses love unconditionally. It just sends it out there. It sends out the energy. This energy is the energy of love. And when we condition that love, when we offer it in a conditional way, or we start to live from a conditional love sort of perspective, we're actually suppressing the fullest expression of that God nature in you, right? If God is love, if the universal energy is love, by holding back any, you know, even infinitesimal piece of love where we are suppressing that God expression, and therefore we're not free. So the more that we can express that unconditional love, the more sense of freedom starts to emerge. Now this, of course, takes courage. A lot of what we're talking about here is standing up to our fears, standing up to our anxieties, standing up to the things that we're unsure about. And I stress that we want to stand up to our fears, not to eliminate them, not to eradicate them, but to manage them. At least in my life, I have not seen where fears go away. In fact, when I left the ashram, when I left the monastic life, one of my tenets was to face my fears, to take responsibility for my happiness, to trust my intuition and follow it, and to ultimately face my fears. And I can tell you that, you know, in a naive sort of way, I thought facing my fears would dissipate those fears. But indeed, especially in the beginning, facing my fears meant living more in fear. If you get that, right? I mean, if you're avoiding your fears, you can at least pretend that they're not there temporarily. But if you're facing them head on, it's like you are with your fear. You're struggling with it. You're interacting with that fear, learning to have enough courage to move past that fear. All right, so facing your fears doesn't mean that life becomes fearless. And that's why I use the word courage rather than fearlessness, because I don't that we, again, and I'll speak from my own experience, that fear ever really gets eliminated. There's always things that pop up, but being able to recognize that that is a fear in that moment, assess it for what it is. Some fears are worth heeding and hightailing it the other direction. You know, I mean, if a semi truck is barreling at you at 90 miles an hour, you know, be afraid and jump out of the way. You know, don't stand up with courage and say, you know, I'm going to face this fear. But of course, that's not the kind of fears that I'm generally talking about. There's things that come up that have been that suppress our full expression, that we know that we can get through. We have to just, you know, hunker down and have the courage. But know that, you know, a life without fear is a fairly unrealistic proposition. And just having that wisdom can help you move through those fears easier, because you know that on some level they're not real. They're not, you have the fear, but it's a fear that you can move through, again, rather than that semi coming through. That one, move out of the way, all right? So, Lindsay Kaufman, hey, join us. Marbella, hey, it's great to have you on as we get close to the end here. So I'm really, you know, coming to the point where it's like, what if you could work towards freedom in your life? You know, what's going to happen? Life opens up for you. Imagine a life where possibilities start to open up. You have more avenues that you can travel. It doesn't feel like you're compelled or propelled to just do the same thing over and over again, or stay on the same narrow band of experience, but that more experience and more choice is available to you. One of the greatest things is you're no longer a victim. You no longer see circumstance as your prison, but circumstance is your opportunity. Just like Nelson Mandela in the jail, you know, the jail became his opportunity to find a freedom somewhere deeper inside of him, rather than if he was in victim consciousness, like many of us would be, he would just see that jail as, you know, the expression of his oppressors winning, right? They've encased him, but he wouldn't let them win. He knew his soul was still free inside, and as a result of that conviction, eventually his body became free too. He was released from jail and went on to, you know, express his work in very high-minded ways. So we still, you know, when we are free, when we have more freedom in our lives, we're still, you know, this doesn't mean we're going to be without troubles and challenges. We're still going to have troubles and challenges in your life, but you know that you can rise above them. You know that you have the power and the tools. And this is, once again, bringing it back to the Rythmia experience here, is this is a deep experience in developing your willpower, developing your awareness, starting to take action and learning the tools through the breath work, the plant medicine, the yoga, the meditations that we offer here, the things that you can take back with you to continue to cultivate that sense of freedom in your life. The program here is invaluable for anchoring you in the perception that will allow you to truly be free as you work on it, right? So you're no longer so afraid of what life might deal to you, but you enjoy what you bring to life ultimately. And this, you know, this is really the ultimate expression of freedom. When you, without compulsion, can bring your own creative energy to life and allow your fullest expression, allow yourself to move in the direction that your soul is guiding you in, despite any fears, despite any habits that are tugging you in the other direction. And then that's when you can truly offer your gifts to the world. And, you know, as Gandhi said, be the change you want to see in your life. Other spiritual master says, change yourself and you'll change thousands. when you actually start operating from that level of soul freedom, not only will you have affected your own sense of how you see the world, but you'll start to affect those around you. Those, those that just can't handle that vibration are going to be repelled. Those that need that or need that extra push to gain that freedom themselves are going to be attracted to you and are going to be helped by you. You don't even have to do anything along those lines except continue to cultivate your own freedom, part of which is to express that unconditional love to anybody and everybody that crosses your path. So with that, that's pretty much what I have to say on this subject. Let's just tune in and see if anybody's got any comments, any questions you want asked. Priceless. Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. This was an errorless video. Priceless is what you meant, right? What's the topic? The topic is freedom, making freedom a reality. See you next week. Excellent, Sean. I'm looking forward to it. Make sure you introduce yourself to me and say that you saw this. Love this session. Thanks, Deborah. And hopefully we'll see you in Denver soon, September. How do you look to find yourself if you don't know who you are deep down? Well, so that, Ricky, is what the Rythmia program is all about. So that there's all sorts of ways to figure this out. In fact, there's always, and Moon told Jerry, even death is the way that we ultimately figure this all out. But who wants to wait till death, right? We've got a lot of life that gets lived in a less than fun way if death is our final teacher. So this program at Rythmia is designed to show me who I become, bring you that awareness, then help you actually merge with your soul and heal your heart. Give yourself that ability to express the unconditional love, all in a week's time. I mean, it truly is miraculous, the kinds of changes and transformations that people go through here. And we track that, and 95% of the people who leave here report that they got a miracle of some way, shape, or form. And that could be an actual physical miracle. They could have healed themselves of some kind of physical ailment. It could be a mental miracle where now they just see clear, they're happier, their depression's gone, whatever. It could be a miracle in that they understand their place in life, they understand their purpose, and now they're ready to live it. It could be a miracle just in that they have a new appreciation for life, and that life has become a fun experience. It could be a miracle that they choose to live rather than, many people come here having seriously committed, seriously thought about committing that act of leaving this earth in a self-directed sort of way. So all those are the miraculous things that can come from joining this program. So call that number up top if you got any questions. You're welcome to talk to me more too about Rythmia or anything along the lines of breath work or my, the life and wisdom I've garnered through my monastic experience. If you want to do that, go to my Facebook page, R. Christian Minson, my wall, and friend me. If you do that, if you friend me, all I ask is that you add a message, that you send a message through Facebook Messenger just saying, I saw you on Facebook Live. It'd be great if you said something that you liked about that Facebook Live, but at least I saw you on Facebook Live, so I want to keep the conversation alive. That will get me to friend you quicker. If you don't do that, I can't guarantee that I'm going to accept the friend request. So hopefully that answers that question. Hello, seekers. Hello. People joining. Are you totally free? I answered that one. The reward is amazing. Yes, it is if you work at it. I'm being too mean, and what's this say? Derek, I'm being too mean and I'm no help. So good with the talk. Sorry. Not really getting an understanding of what that means, but just say, get that willpower to get in alignment with your soul. By being too mean or that you're no good, no help, that's all your ego self. And that can derail you from your freedom. That's victim consciousness, right? So we want to get out of that. Your talk on forgiveness last week was awesome. Yeah, thanks. How do you distinguish between ego voice and intuition voice? Ricky, I'm going to have you, I'm not going to answer this here, but direct you to, I have a Facebook Live that's exactly that. It's called Soul versus Ego. You can find it here in the Rythmia Facebook videos, or you can go on the Rythmia YouTube page and find it. Soul versus Ego, and that will give you a lot of different ways to tune into which voice is speaking to you. All this, okay, so that's looking good. See if anybody at the end. Amanda, oh man, I missed the talk. I'd love to come to Rythmia. It keeps piping up all over the place. I became paralyzed in January. Do you think a physical miracle will happen for me? I think if you think it's possible, that's probably the number one thing that makes people come here, receive their miracle, is they're knowing that it is possible. If you don't believe it, that's the number one door that gets shut before anything can happen. So those that come here recognize and realize that this is a program that works, but it's a program that requires work, and it requires you to fully participate and you to be on board with physically and emotionally doing what it takes and knowing that it's possible. With that, there's been many books and many talks on the placebo effect, on mind over matter, on manifesting our reality through the ways that we think. And so it's all possible. And this program continues to support that week after week. So yeah, get yourself here one way or the other. All right. So with that, I'm going to say thank you once again. Remember the Breathwork Week's happening July 22nd through 29th, and then August 19th through 26th will be the next two before we take a break in September, and then we start up right at the end of September to, I think it's September 28th through October 5th will be the next Breathwork Week. So this is where all the ceremonies are breathwork ceremonies. So if you can't do plant medicine, if you're on medications that don't allow you to do plant medicine, if you just don't want to do plant medicine, but you want this rhythmic experience and this opportunity to attain a miracle, come check out the Breathwork Week. Call that number, ask for details. There's no commitments there by calling, but those folks can help you out in a big way. And like I said, so can I if you want to Facebook Live me or Facebook message me. All right, with that, over and out. R. Christian Minson saying namaste, and we'll talk with you next week. All right, take care.